Yes, sir. We are back again with Fantasy Fire and Ice NFL edition here on Sportstopia.io. Sportstopia HQ on Twitter, on X, on Instagram. Make sure you give us a follow there. And I would like to tell you all about a story about a boy that had admirations of one day coming out to the world and being a betting host. And that boy became a man. And that man had a debate off air in the dark hours last episode that the Tennessee Titans would destroy destroy the Falcons behind the back of Malik Willis. Malik Willis didn't play. Will Levis did. And he had 4 touchdowns to go against those Atlanta Falcons because Desmond Ridder is bad on the road, who got knocked out of that game as well. And then there was another boy who became a man, and his name is Stu. And he said I should bet the Falcons. And I said, don't do it. And matter of fact, I'm going to put them at the top of my article this week to not do it. And it was the only play in the article that won. Stu, what's going on? Welcome back, man. What's up?
Yeah, well, I was going to plug your article right there because obviously I was on the wrong side of that. You know, you had the trends, the stats right there.
Vrabel as a dog, man. You don't doubt. It doesn't matter what quarterback you get him. You don't doubt Vrabel as a dog. Like, you do not doubt Vrabel as a dog.
The only out I'll take is that my hatred was directed towards Malik Willis. And obviously, Will Levis was the guy that got it done. Our argument was before the injury announcement, before everything was finalized. So I want to give myself a little bit of an out right there. But no, you nailed that. And I wasn't even mad. I had money on the Falcons. I was watching that game. But, I mean, watching Levis throw 4 40-yard bombs, like, you can't be mad at that.
Like, it. Oh, man, I have no idea what to do on Thursday night. Like, you got to fade that. You have to fade that again. Like, there was no close touchdowns. None of those close. He wasn't in the red zone for any of those touchdowns.
Just to give a little stat right there. If you watch last night's primetime game, right, and you're thinking, oh, that was one of the ugliest offensive performances I've ever seen. This Titans team actually had a worse success rate in their game with Will Levis. Right. Worse than that last night performance in primetime. Right. They actually statistically were not great. Levis just bailed them out with a bunch of huge throws. So like you said, can we depend on him to do that again against Mike Tomlin? That's a little bit of a tougher ask right there.
Oh, Lordy. I don't even want to think about it yet. I got to type this article up for this week. I don't think the Titans going to make it this week. However, what I do want to talk about is the game that you alluded to last night in Monday Night Football, the Raiders versus the Lions. That was one of the plays that I lost in my article, man. Oh, the Raiders, a close your eyes special. And they lose. Oh, man, that's nasty. Close your eyes special moves to 6-2 on the season, I think. Yeah, I think it's 6-2. I got to go back and check numbers. But it was really... It was just a terrible offensive game. They couldn't get anything going in the passing game. Devontae Adams was pissed. He went 1 for 11, and he tried to spare us, a historic media interview. I mean, Devontae, just let it go, bro. Let it go. But I don't have my free Tay shirt on today. I will have them made and have them ready for next week, and I'll probably wear them, well, the deadline's today, so I'll probably be wearing.
Oh, got a little bit of a technical difficulty right there. Once again,
for the course of the rest of the season.
Are you good? Going back and forth.
Wow.
It sounds like you're back now. Can you hear me?
I just wanted to get your debacle that is the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders offense, obviously, I had more faith in it. I was kind of on the same side you were coming into this game as well, of like Jimmy Garoppolo at least provides kind of a safe floor for just basic offensive performance, right? But as we saw in that game, a wide receiver didn't have the catch until the second half, right? Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, a wide receiver didn't have a single catch until deep into the third quarter in that game. And that obviously, as a guy that wants to start Jacoby Myers in the leagues I have him in, that's given me some concern, because to me, this profiled as another solid game. They were going to be trailing. They were going to have to throw a lot, and they weren't going to be able to run as well on this Lions rush defense. That's what I thought coming into the game. We didn't see any of that. So as a Jacoby Myers fantasy owner, especially, I'm a little bit worried. Devontae Adams can't be really mad at that. I know it's another bad week, but it's Devontae Adams, like you said, at the end of the week.
Yeah, man. This Raiders team is just all bad. I don't know how McDaniel still has a job. Honestly, truly, like it's a lot of guys that he's hitching his flag on, and they're not panning out. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I said this last night that I could probably do a list of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, like every single quarterback, and there's probably a few backups that are probably above Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. So it's pretty brutal there. But the Lions look like the real deal, like they really do, and their schedule opens up for them in the second half of the season. I mean, I'm probably going to fade them in the playoffs, but the rest of the season, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. No, especially if you're a Jahmyr Gibbs fantasy owner, right? We finally saw the breakout last night without David Montgomery. It looks like Montgomery will probably be back after the bye week. So, maybe if you can sell high, and if people are thinking this might be the norm for the rest of the season, then maybe you do that. But it was clear Gibbs showed the talent that you were hoping to see. So at least you have that at the end of the day, right? We weren't even necessarily sure what a full workload would look like for Gibbs, and we saw it. And it was great. So at least we know that's there. But yeah, for the Lions for the rest of the season, I'm with you. I like them as a regular season team. Once it gets to the playoffs, though, once we get outside, once we got to play maybe outside of a dome, it gets a little bit cold, we got a little snow. That's when I get a little bit worried about Jared Goff. That's when I think this offense might, find some more problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Jahmyr Gibbs, just to talk about, this is the moment that Jahmyr Gibbs owners have been waiting for this entire time. The entire time they've been sitting here and saying that, hey, man, I need this guy to break out. I paid too much capital for it. But now the conversation is very real. How long do we get this version of Jahmyr Gibbs? Is this a temporary thing until Montgomery comes back? Or is he going to have a sizable workload when Montgomery gets back? And do you need to, cut ties with him before that happens?
Yeah, it depends. I think where's Gibbs in the traditional person's lineup? I think a lot of people have him as their either RB1 if you were a zero RB guy, or most likely RB2, right? So for me, if he's your RB2, then I would be interested in trading him and selling high right now, because I firmly believe when David Montgomery's back, he's going right back to that 20 carry role. I know you're going to see the Twitter threads, you're going to see the tape, all those guys, but I mean, what matters is the press conferences. And Dan Campbell goes in there and talks about how much he loves David Montgomery week after week after week. So for me personally, if he's your wide receiver running back number 2, then I'd be interested in trading him. If he's your flex, if he's kind of that borderline guy, you have a couple options, then that upside becomes, insane. And then for that reason, I probably wouldn't trade him.
All right. Make sure everybody checks out the Fantasy Sports Logic Optimizer. Make sure you get that Contrarian Optimizer. Use the QR code at the bottom of the screen, and you can go and try that for a test run. 7-day test drive for just $1. Go out there, try it, make some money. Hey, you can make some money and then use that and go get you the lifetime version. So definitely make sure you tap in with that Fantasy Sports Logic Contrarian Optimizer there. Scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, man, I'm on the same wave that you as Gibbs. I think that I think I'm trying to sell because I don't think David Montgomery's going away. I don't think you brought him in for Gibbs to play well. I think you feel good knowing that you have 2 good running backs instead of just one. So yeah, I think that this might be where his ceiling is at, which is a pretty good ceiling. But I think that things are going to open up for Montgomery more when he comes back. All right. Let's talk about here a couple of trades that went down in the NFL over the course. Man, I mean, the Giants are just done with the season, tanking for Caleb Williams as they trade their best defensive tackle, Leonard Williams, over to the Seattle Seahawks. Montez Sweat goes from your Commanders over to the Bears. I mean, the Bears play, I get why they did it, and it may be better in the long run for the Bears, but I don't think it helps them too much right now. This is a pretty bad team overall. Where is this Seattle team? Wait a second, because if you start generating pressure to the quarterback and you start helping out that secondary a little bit more, this Seattle defense may be a lot better with Leonard Williams in the middle. Are you buying into Seattle rest of the season?
I am. And it's surprisingly, it's for the defense. Like you said, maybe at the beginning of the season, maybe even midway through last year, we would kind of say this team hangs their hat on the offensive side of the ball. But you mentioned the Legion of Boom was built from having these strong members of your secondary that you trust in one-on-one coverage and letting everyone else take care of it at the line of scrimmage. And like you said, they haven't been able to generate that pressure. That's been the missing piece in this defense. So adding a guy that you think could potentially change your defensive line is huge. And I love that addition. I love the secondary already. This is a young, scrappy team. They've got some good safeties. They obviously got a lot of Giants over there, a lot of former Giants now as well.
Hey, man, it's what happens. They leave the team and then they go somewhere and have a great time and go win a championship or something like that. I don't know. It sucks. Giants are terrible.
Yeah, no, I feel you. That's the cycle of having the bad team over here. You get the good player, and then you get rid of them before they hit their peak, right? And then they hit their peak somewhere else. So overall, I like that move for the Seahawks a lot. I've been hoping the Seahawks were going to do it. They can be a little bit conservative at times, especially because they haven't been winning as much recently. But back in their day, right, with Pete Carroll, when they were winning, they were aggressive. So I'd like to see that same energy back. And I hope the Seahawks team keeps on winning games. I think they see the 49ers are a little weaker than they thought they were coming into the year. And I think that's the decision maker on why they go for it right there.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. You're a game ahead of them in the standings and you haven't played them yet. Yep. And so, you split that series and you're already feeling pretty good about where you're at if you're Seattle trying to go win this division. So I am impressed by the move. I respect the move. I'm just sick about it for my team. But, we got a couple of draft picks. A second round pick came out of it. So that's going to be pretty solid. I trust that our staff can draft pretty decently. It's just, oh, man, we got to get rid of the guys that are here. Just get rid of the guys. Get rid of everybody. Fire everybody. Honestly, truly, I think that is a terrible loss, a terrible win for the Jets. Terrible win. You only beat this Giants team by one possession? Really? That's a terrible win. Anybody that only beats us by one possession is terrible. Hence why my disgust of the Buffalo Bills.
And hey, that was barely a win. I mean, it took overtime and that was awful.
We had to help. Yeah. I jinxed it. I bet on the Giants. I did. I jinxed it. As soon as Kayvon got that, what was it, that sack on fourth down, and that gave us the ball back, I thought it was over. I thought they could kneel down. And so I was tweeting. I was like, everybody said, all 77% of people that took the Jets, how you feel now? I'm over here hype. I'm thinking that they could kneel down. Nope. It was too much time on the clock, and the Giants suck. So thanks. Appreciate it. That's why I am the most superstitious person of all time. All right. Let's get into the waiver ads market of the episode, because we have to start at one. We were talking about it at the top of the show. Will Levis is rostered in 3% of leagues. 3%. It's actually 2% more than I would have thought he was rostered in. And I'm very, very interested to hear what the 3% of people thought. Maybe those are like dynasty leagues that are in or something like that. Like maybe those are okay. I could buy that. I'm not sold, even though I bet on him and he cashed a bet for me plus money. I'm not sold. I am not sold. It is pretty much what you said, in the fact of somehow, some way. And now maybe you could use the logic of like, he had 4 long touchdowns. Like that is hard to replicate. You can't just replicate 4 long touchdowns like that. But it's also like, in what game are you going to have 4 long touchdowns like that again? And it just feels like he gave too much expectations in his first game, because now people are going to expect one thing and they're going to get another. I can't buy into Will Levis. I'm going to let somebody else waste the fab.
Yeah, unfortunately, even as a guy that doesn't have good quarterbacks, if you look at my teams, I've got a lot of like Dak Prescott as my best quarterbacks.
So I have a league. I have a league where I have Matthew Stafford and Kenny Pickett as my options. Yeah. So I have to go to the market this week. But I don't want Levis. I don't want Levis.
I'm going in the same direction as well. Like, this feels like one of those things where people buy him and then he has a bad game against Pittsburgh and they drop him immediately. Like, everyone buys the hype so quick. Oh my God, I want this guy. And then, Mike Tomlin humbles the rookie a little bit back on the waiver wire. So I agree. I like what I saw. But also, when you look at the film a little bit, you have to realize, like I said earlier with the success rate stat, they weren't having a lot of good drives. They were really bailed out by those good, like, bomb plays. And I know you can't just take out the good plays from a team, right? That's obviously how it works. But now that they're going to at least have a week of film to kind of see what was going on, I'd assume we see a lot more deep safety looks, and you make Will Levis slowly march down the field and beat you. I don't know if they can do that. Maybe Derrick Henry getting less stacked boxes might be nice, but overall, yeah, don't have a lot of hope for Levis, especially as a contributing fantasy asset. But as just a fan of football, I hope this guy is good because that was sick, and I want more bombs in football. That's fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have I had no idea what to make of that game. Honestly, when I heard Levis was starting, I kind of ripped my ticket up. I didn't rip it up, but I pushed it to the side and wasn't really concerned about the game anymore because I thought Will Levis was trash, and I still do think he's trash. But man, those plays, and I mean, if it's up to DeAndre Hopkins, I think DeAndre Hopkins still has the talent to make those plays happen more. And I may be interested in betting a Will Levis longest completion. I probably will get there. I'm not gonna lie, I probably will get there on the longest completion. But overall, for him to consistently be good in fantasy, nah, I'm not buying it. All right. We got a question in chat. Dylan's asking, considering his team in redraft full PPR, would you give up Diggs for Pacheco and Garrett Wilson? You can look at his team there. He's got CJ Stroud, Justin Fields. You look at his skill position players, CMC, Jerome Ford, Roshan, DeMarco, and Singletary Herbert. You have Diggs, Ayuk, Waddle, Flowers. Okay. Waddle. Yeah, I like the Waddle play. Would you give up Diggs for Pacheco and Garrett Wilson? It looks like he's trying to fortify that RB spot and then still get a pretty good. Well, I've gone on record in saying I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a great second half of the season compared to first half of the season. But is Diggs?
Interesting. This one's a tough one because you're kind of clearly giving up the better player, but you're trying to secure the better lineup, right? Because you obviously have strong wide receivers, as we can see, and then the running back room is a little bit iffy. So I see the logic. For me, I don't hate the trade. What I would do, though, is when I get something like this, I try to fish around and get a slight upgrade. Like you have two solid options in Pacheco and Wilson, but I think you could probably do slightly better. So I would say shop it around for a day or two. And if you're still not getting anything and you want to really fortify that running back room, then I get it. But I'm not as high on Garrett Wilson. So I personally probably don't accept the trade just because, man, I don't want to start any Jet. And I have Breece Hall. That's already enough stress on my heart on a weekly basis. I don't want to double that up.
Yeah, man. And I understand. It's still Zach Wilson. It's still the Jets offense. So there still is questions for Garrett Wilson. I don't think I'm making this one. I don't think I'm making it. Garrett Wilson almost got me there. It really did. But I don't think I'm making it. I don't feel like I got enough return on value for Diggs, who can probably, average 20 points per game or something like that. So, all right. Appreciate it, Dylan. Nice play. Yes, Pacheco does have a nice playoff schedule. Same thing as Wilson. I think Wilson's going to be really, really good for people in the playoffs. You probably have a pretty good team. So I think that plays into it. If you feel like you have a good team, you can coast to the playoffs, then yeah, because I do think these two players have great playoff stretches. I looked at them earlier. All right. Let's move on to the next player to talk about in our waiver wire ads, and that is your Jahan Dotson, who comes back and finally has the week and finally looks like the wide receiver 2 that everybody wanted against the Eagles. And I mean, I just think this offense overall is just too inconsistent for me to feel comfortable about starting anybody. And it completely went the same way that every game this season has gone on for the Commanders. They have a good offensive day. They have a bad offensive day. Sam Howell has a good day with no interceptions. He had an interception yesterday, so I guess he kind of ruined that streak. But he still had a good day. Like, I think he had a good day yesterday. And that's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Sam Howell in this team, in this offense. They have a good game, then they have a bad game. They have a good game, they have a bad game. So guess what? Pistol them in for a bad game next week. I mean, I see the path, and we're in week 8, 9, whatever freaking week it is, and the pattern's still going. So, I mean, maybe you could get me on a different pattern than Commanders, but I've been fading them one week and backing them the next, and it's been cashing for this far into the season already.
Yeah, I've been fading them a lot. I mean, so far this year, so I can never hate on that. I mean, this was obviously a good performance. They've played up to Philly both times, and then like you said, everyone's expectation has risen, and then it's been a disappointment every time. So it's one of those things where there's no reason for me to get my hopes up. It seems like one of those classic cases where you play up to a good team and you play down to a bad team, and I think that's a symptom of coaching. And I think everyone in the world can look at this Washington team and what they've been the last couple of years and clearly see there's some coaching problems. So looking ahead at next week against New England, yeah, I don't want any piece of that. Like that seems like a clear coaching mismatch. Even with everyone hating on Bill Belichick, they improved their offense a bit last week. And I'm not even worried about the offensive side. I'm worried about the defensive side of the ball. So for me, I'm not too high in Washington. I'm definitely not high in Jahan Dotson. He had a good week. Congrats. I know that hopefully makes a lot of best ball people happy out there because at one point in the year, people were almost ready to draft Jahan Dotson over Terry McLaurin. I mean, the hype went insane over the summer over this guy, and now he's under waiver wire. So I'm not really interested in picking him up. If you can get him for free, there's nothing against that. But like you said, this offense is just too inconsistent. Curtis Samuel went out with an injury in that game. If he's back in the lineup, I still think he's the wide receiver too.
Yeah. And that's really what it is for me, Curtis Samuel injury. And that'll tell me if I even consider. But I don't think I'm starting anybody against the Patriots. I mean, I know he's not technically a rookie anymore, but young quarterbacks versus the Patriots don't typically go well. Bill Belichick, seeing ghosts. He has them seeing ghosts out there. So, all right, I'm with you. I'm not really buying into the Jahan Dotson hype. I think this was just a good game, and he was due. Keith, why is he on the sheet? Why are we talking about this? I am so good. Like, okay, so the Rams get destroyed. The Rams get destroyed by the Cowboys. That's not what we're talking about here. Last week on the show, I sat there and I said, you know what? Just spitballing. Play Royce Freeman anytime touchdown. Because this week is Darrell Henderson. Next week it could be Royce Freeman. Somehow Royce Freeman finds his way into the end zone. Oh man, this Rams running. I mean, are you buying into anybody in the Rams running back room between Darrell Henderson, who had 12 for 31, 2.6 yards per carry against the Cowboys? I mean, this was a tough Cowboys run defense, so I'm not really kind of kicking them too hard about that. It was just a bad game overall. But Royce Freeman now 9 for 44, 4.9 per carry, and a touchdown. Is it? I had to do it, even though I hate the Rams backfield. There's some people that don't. Is it Royce Freeman season for the Rams?
It's not. No, it's not. You had a good call last week. It's like whack-a-mole. You beat down and someone else randomly appears. It's going to be Myles Gaskin's going to get the touchdown next week. For me, it's just one of those things. If anyone, I'm going Henderson. I know he had the worst usage, but also it came in the more important spots when the game was closer. And like you mentioned, too, that's a terrible matchup right there. You give a lot of good running backs 12 carries, and they're not doing much against this Dallas front seven. So I'm not really worried about Henderson. The problem is there's just no upside there. Like if you need desperately like 6, 7, 8 points to just plug into your roster, Henderson is probably your best bet for that on this team because I don't see Royce getting in the end zone again because this team passes a lot in the red zone as well. So it's one of those things. Cooper cut back. I think he takes over a little bit more in the red zone. Not super interested in any of these backs, but if you need it desperately, then Henderson can be an okay plug and play.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not. You seen? I don't even want to pay attention to the Rams backfield. Like that doesn't exist to me. Let's see. Who's gonna be the Rams running back scorer next week? Watch, they don't even have a running back score next week. Watch it be a wide receiver on a jet sweep. That's really gonna piss people off. Watch it's a wide receiver, maybe a Tutu Atwell on a jet sweep. Watch that be what happens next. I mean, my gosh, who do the Rams play next week? They play the Packers. Wow, that's a bad run defense. All right, we'll see. Okay, moving on to the next player in our waiver wire ads, and is Jameson Crowder a thing again?
Well, this one I thought you were initially laughing at when you reacted like that. And the only reason it's because he's a little relevant to Dotson, who we were talking about a second ago. I don't know. I don't think Crowder's really relevant at all. He just randomly popped up on the Commanders the other week. Shout out to him. Had a punt return for like 60 yards in his first game off the couch. So always loved the guy, but not fantasy relevant. It's more his inclusion along with Diami Brown. And who's that other guy? Byron Pringle. All these guys are getting snaps on the Washington offense, which is just another reason why a guy like Jahan Dotson becomes a little less valuable, because most teams are not rotating random washed-up wide receiver threes for no reason, but Washington is. We got the trifecta of Byron Pringle, Jamison Crowder, and Diami Brown taking away snaps from Jahan Dotson. So he's not fantasy relevant himself, but his inclusion is important just to highlight that Jahan Dotson is kind of in a rough spot right now.
Honestly, truly, I don't care about Jamison Crowder. What this told me is that I can start anybody versus the Eagles. I can start basically any. Listen to the top 4 pass catchers against the Eagles secondary yesterday. Jahan Dotson, 8 receptions on 10 targets, 108 and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder, 7 receptions on 7 targets, 95 and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin, 5 receptions on 12 targets, 63 and a touchdown. Logan Thomas, 6 receptions on 8 targets, 44 and a touchdown. Like, I can start against this Eagles secondary. This Eagles team is good, and they're winning games. But I can start players on this secondary. And if I'm looking for a DFS ad, if I'm looking for a flyer in a large fantasy league, this Eagles secondary might be somebody that I need to target, because that's brutal. That Jamison Crowder walked in 7 for 7, 95 and a touchdown. Like, that is brutal. Especially if you're a buyer playing Arnold who's been there a little bit longer. Very, very brutal. All right. We talked about Gibbs. Craig Reynolds, I think people were trying to buy into. And I think we talked about it last week. Where we said Craig Reynolds isn't going to show up on the fantasy stat sheet. His contributions and everything he does for the game is going to show up more in an NFL aspect than an actual on the field aspect. However, he had 14 for 74. He had 14 for 74, 5.3 per carry, and he still added a catch in there for 12 more yards. I think that this is less about Craig Reynolds and shows that you still may have a role with Jahmyr Gibbs when Montgomery comes back. But I don't think that this is enough for me to go out there and say I need to go try to roster Craig Reynolds before Montgomery comes back. But that shows me that there's enough workload to go around that if they have the matchup, they will use both Gibbs and Montgomery. So I think that just feeds more into Gibbs being solid for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's actually really well said right there. I think that's perfect. I mean, Craig Reynolds himself doesn't really give you that value, but like you said, it kind of just highlights the way they want to operate this offense, where one guy takes the heavy workload, but then there's that other guy that's still fantasy relevant there. When it's Craig Reynolds, he's not going to be fantasy relevant, but when it's a first-round pick, when it's a guy you drafted in the top 15 in Jahmyr Gibbs, that's when you make a little bit more impact with the limited touches. So very well said. I completely agree. No real reason to spend anything on Craig Reynolds, but a little bit of hope for Gibbs guys when the lineup gets back to normal.
All right. In a game where nobody outside of CeeDee Lamb got much work, Brandon Cooks finished 3 for 49 and a touchdown. Ironically, he's also rostered in 49% of leagues. I want to get behind Brandon Cooks so bad. I really do. I really, really do. I don't think games like this happen every week for the Cowboys. I don't think games like this happens every week. However, next week against the Eagles. Hey, if you want a spot start, go ahead and take Brandon Cooks next week against the Eagles, because we just talked about how Jamison Crowder came off the street and had 7 for 7, 95 and a touchdown. I mean, this could be the Michael Gallup week. You know, I think CD will still have a pretty good week, but this Eagles secondary has been pretty lax, and Dak's played pretty well against the Eagles in the past. Are you interested in Brandon Cooks next week against the Eagles and going forward this season? Because he's kind of been up and down, but it looks like he's starting to get into a little bit of a groove.
Yeah, my worry is Brandon Cooks might be Brandon cooked right now, right? I mean, it hasn't looked too good out there on the field. What I will say, and the one reason, especially like you said, against the Eagles, I would have some interest as a spot start. For the rest of the season, probably not as much interest, but for this specific week, I do agree with you with how good that rush defense is too, and how much the Cowboys want to run. I don't think they're going to get anything going. So I think they have to pass. And the good sign that you have here too is Dak keeps talking about him in these post-game interviews and stuff stuff. They keep saying, man, Cooks is doing everything for us behind the scenes. We need to get him the ball more. And obviously, a lot of people like to disregard that information, but these are humans. Like, these are real people with real, like, connections. And I think they are working to get him the ball more. My biggest concern was that random Gallup 9-target game where he had, like, 3 catches and he dropped half of them. Like, that was kind of weird to see. You'd expect more of that action to go to Cooks, especially after he dropped all those other targets before. So that's the one thing. It's like this team doesn't love to throw. So when they do throw it, are they going to throw it to Cooks? In my head, I don't know if I have enough trust, but overall, yeah, it'll be close.
Oh, man. I mean, I've been trying to ride the wave for the majority of the season, but I can't. I mean, the Cowboys stench just completely broke Brandon Cooks. It really did. And so against the Eagles, I am 100% there with you, though. However, that Eagles secondary is pretty bad. But after that, I'm with you. I don't really know how much I can really do with this team. We are in week 9 of the season, and we finally have a Taysom Hill waiver wire question. Some say that we are some weeks late. Others will say that we should never have this conversation. I feel like I'm in the middle because while I hate the conversation, he also finds ways to make himself relevant. Is there any chance that you're interested in Taysom Hill in a redraft league?
Not really. I mean, it's one of those things like it's so you never know when it's going to happen. Like last week, he was getting receptions, and I was like, "Oh, okay, he's a receiver now." And then this week, it was totally different. Like it's one of those things you just never know when you can start him. And at that point, it's really hard for me to spend like fab on a guy that I don't know if is ever even going to make it into my lineup.
Oh, I mean, no one to start him, no one to bet him. I played Taysom Hill's 2 touchdowns last week.
Oh.
Yes, I played 2 touchdowns last week. As soon as it happened, I was like, you know what? I knew it. I knew that he would do it this week. I knew it would be the week that I did like, and then right after, what a big double bird. What a huge double bird. If I could put the double bird up on the screen, I'd put the double bird up the screen. What a huge double bird to me is Taysom Hill. And there's been weeks that I've been struggling at tight end. And I've said, you know what? Maybe Taysom Hill falls into the end zone this week. And so I streamed Taysom Hill for a week because I literally had 0 option at tight end. Nothing. And then a random game against the Indianapolis Colts where you have a road spot and you go and you pick up Taysom Hill at your own risk. Go ahead, pick him up at your own risk. And I hope that it works out better than it did for me. That's what I hope. I hope it works out better than it did for me because I'm 0 for 2 with Taysom Hill this season. Whether I'm starting him, whether I'm betting on him, I'm 0 for 2. And you know what? I'm probably something worse like that all time because he just never goes off when I say he's going to do it. But then it happens when, there's no attention. So, you know what? Fine. Done with Taysom Hill. I'm over Taysom Hill. and the fact that he even is technically still a quarterback is kind of blowing me. In a league where we have all these backup quarterbacks that are not amounting to anything. And Taysom Hill is in here playing tight end, even though I don't really like him as a quarterback. And Jameis Winston is riding the bench. Put Jameis Winston on the Vikings.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's have a good time. Yep. I mean, I don't know why the Vikings haven't made this trade already. Let's put them on the Vikings and let's just have a great time rest of the season, please. Oh man.
No, as a Jordan Addison fantasy owner, I mean, I thought I had a star for like 30 minutes today, right? I'm like, oh my God, Addison is balling out against 2 top-end wide receiver defenses. First, the 49ers, now the Packers. I was fired up, and then Kirk Cousins goes down. Now we have a guy that can't complete a forward pass, and now a lot of.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Tommy DeVito?
No,
I thought you were talking about Tommy DeVito because Tommy DeVito can't. They didn't even let him do it. Like, how do you roster? How do you use a roster spot on a quarterback? Yeah, why is he on the practice team and you don't trust him to throw a forward pass in a game? What is the purpose of him being on the team? Why is he on the team? You should be cut bagging groceries somewhere. Why are you on the team and we can't trust you to throw the ball forwards? You should not be on the team at all. Yes, I'm crying because we should have won that game if he could throw a forward pass. The Giants didn't even attempt one they didn't attempt one in the second half. Only attempted in overtime. Didn't even attempt one in the second half. Oh my gosh. And now you have Jaron Hall, who I like at BYU. I do. But if you're not going to give him the chance to throw the football, then why is he on the team? Like, it's called quarterback for a reason, people. Oh, man. I mean, did people not learn from the 49ers in that NFC Championship game that you should really, really trust your emergency quarterbacks? Like, you should really, really trust your emergency quarterbacks. I could go on a longer tangent. I could, but you know what? This is a waiver wire ads episode. We're going to continue it going with talking about another player, and that is one Trey McBride. This is one that the fantasy community has been waiting on for a while. They have been waiting on Trey McBride. I've been sitting on him in Dynasty, waiting for that moment. But, I mean, it seems like the Trey McBride breakout might be here. 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. 14 targets in that game. I mean, I know that we're not getting Josh Dobbs this week. I don't know why they came out and said that they're sitting Dobbs for Clayton Tune. I just feel like, and maybe it's because they're looking at their NFL record of 1-7 and that they're a bad football team NFL wise. But against the spread, he got you that cover last week. And it was partially you for kicking the field goal, but he got you the cover and he put you in a position to get the cover. So why ruin it for us with Clayton Tune? By the way, I have bet a Clayton Tune game before, and I did get the win in preseason. It was terrible. It was sweaty. It was literally the last play of the game, and I regret doing it. Probably not going to do it again. But is it Trey McBride season? Is that real? Like, is this a thing?
It is a thing. Zach Ertz got out of his way. This is a team that targeted the tight end more than any other team in football already with Zach Ertz in the lineup. That opens up a ton of volume. The reason I didn't play him last week, or why I was interested, is that's one of the toughest matchups in football. That linebacker core is probably, in my rankings, the second best linebacker core in football. That just makes it harder for a tight end, especially with such a low ADOT. The good news is they're always going to be trailing. So when you're trailing like that, when you're behind, you have to throw the ball. And at the end of the day, he's going to be a beneficiary of that. You read out that stat line. The guy's ADOT's like 3 yards. He's running 2 yards, chipping half of the time, and then turning around with his hands open, waiting for a check down. That's not a bad role to have as a tight end. Before, earlier in the year, that was the Hayden Hurst. And I think he'll kind of take over that role. The upside is the Evan Ingram, because when you're in a good offense, that's kind of what Evan Ingram does. He's not really running 30 yards down the field, but he stacks up those catches. I think you need a little bit more reliable quarterback before you're all in. And I think obviously Clayton Tune is the farthest thing from a reliable quarterback. I personally think this is one of those spots where Kyler's back and healthy, but they absolutely don't want to start him against this defense. Joshua Dobbs is such a tradable asset.
Clayton Tune out to the Wolves.
Yeah, so they're sacrificing him. Exactly.
He's a sacrificial lamb to the Browns. Hey, man, you could have just kept Josh Dobbs out there for that. No, that's really crazy, yo. That's really crazy. Clayton Tune's career is over before it starts. Like, it really is. Like, they're throwing a rookie quarterback out there against one of the best defenses in the league because they don't want to start Kyler.
He's playing at Houston. He's never seen a Myles Garrett before. It's not going to be good.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Yeah. That is hilarious. They're throwing him out to the Wolves. This is disgusting. Clayton Tune. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think laying 8 points with PJ Walker is disgusting. And PJ Walker he probably shouldn't be laying 8 points anywhere against anybody. Probably not even XFL. But Clayton Tune is like, again, I have bet a Clayton Tune game before. Was it against this Browns team? No, it wasn't. Who were they playing in the preseason when we bet them? It wasn't the Browns. That was another game. I don't remember. But either way, I bet Clayton Tune game before. This is not a side that you want to be on, but you don't want to lay 8 with PJ Walker as well. I give up on any Cardinals pass catcher against the Browns this week. Just sit them. You can't start Marquise Hollywood-Brown. I would go get Trey McBride, but I would hold him and not start him this week. Don't think that if you pick up Trey McBride this week, I believe he's rostered in 22% of leagues. I think that's the number. 22% of leagues. Go pick him up because I do think he's going to be good rest of the season, but this week is going to be bad. This week's gonna Clayton Tune is like, you do not want any. I'm trying to tell you guys, I've done this in preseason. You do not want any of the Clayton Tune problems. That is an emotional ride. And even though it did win for me, it's not gonna win every time. And I think he's gonna be brutal for your fantasy players this week. So sit anybody for the Cardinals, even if you were bold to play a Marquise Hollywood Brown, you gotta sit him this week. Wait for week 10 when Kyler comes back. I think that's the matchup you want.
Yeah, and just before you go to bed, just send a prayer for the guy. He's gonna need it this weekend.
Oh my gosh, like this is brutal. I don't know. I pick every game against the spread, and I don't know where I'm going with this one because I can't lay 8. I can't lay 8 with PJ Walker, but Clayton Tune is. I mean, I just don't know how you get better when you don't play any games for 2 months. You're playing against practice squad guys, maybe second team for the majority of the season, and I'm supposed to think that you're just going to come out and play better than you did in the preseason. Yikes. So, nonetheless, Clayton Tune is not on our waiver wire ads column this week. We're not going to be discussing about if you need to start him or not because he's a starting quarterback. Just let it go. Just let it be. And if he's a Will Levis, then fine. Let him be a Will Levis, but I highly doubt that. All right. Let's talk about a couple of some player props that we might like this week. And you have one that you are interested in this week. Go ahead and tell the people about a player prop that you might be interested in.
Yeah, I'm starting out in that early game. Everyone's going to wake up for it anyway, so might as well have some action in it. We're talking about Frankfurt, Germany. We got the Dolphins facing off against the Chiefs, obviously one of the most high-octane matchups possible in the NFL. A guy I like, Rashee Rice, 45.5 receiving yards. I don't see any receptions lines up as well, but I would be interested in receptions. I'm thinking you possibly get 4.5 at plus money or even 3.5 if they're feeling generous. I would definitely take both those. We've seen Rice really trend up recently over these last couple weeks, and the key to me is attacking this Miami defense, right? What do we know about them? Fangio is the godfather of these two high safety cover 2 looks that have become so popular in the NFL, and what that does is that limits the deep play, right? And it limits the explosive threat, and it creates easier opportunities down the middle and a little just easier options for the quarterback to have those short completions. And that's what Rashee Rice has done really well so far. Additionally, he has the very same route tree as Travis Kelce. They both run those short over the middle routes. And at the end of the day, Travis Kelce is the guy that gets all the attention from the safeties, from the cornerbacks, all that stuff. Rashee Rice is the guy that flies under the radar and gets the linebacker. He gets the safety in a one-on-one matchup. And for me, in a game that, we could see 60 points scored at 9 in the morning in this one, right? I want some offense in that one. I think Rashee Rice is going to be a good option for that.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm not parlaying a bunch of touchdowns, yards, all this stuff. It just seems like that's going to be the magic. And it kind of gives shades of that Rams Chiefs game in Mexico City. That's what this feels like. They send 2 really good teams that before the season you expect to be pretty solid overseas, and they have this huge big game, and everybody buys into the NFL overseas, and now everybody wants to do NFL and play NFL all the time. Yeah, man, I like that. I like that look, and I'm actually getting more and more sold on Rashee Rice. I know I've been very pessimistic about anybody that's catching passes for the Chiefs not named Travis Kelce, but Rice really has been breaking out and stepping up to the cream of the crop in that wide receiver room. I don't have a number. I don't have a price. I'm telling you it's going to be available, and you got to bet it. Will Levis interception, man. I mean, the confidence that he has throwing the ball downfield, he's going to throw 2. He's going to throw 2. I would take 1. And when they open up the alt for 2, take 2. He's going to throw 2. He's going to think that he's untouchable. And Minka is going to come out of nowhere like Randy Orton with the RKO. He's gonna take the ball away, man. Like it's so the writing is on the wall, and I actually already envision it and see it in my head. Matter of fact, I will at some point. I don't have a line for it yet. I will probably take Minka Fitzpatrick himself to have the interception. He's gonna throw the ball downfield. He's got all the confidence in the world, and it's gonna be bad. He's gonna throw it right into the safety's hands. So yeah, Minka Fitzpatrick interception. Will Levis to throw an interception. I don't have lines on that stuff yet. I know it's Thursday Night Football, so it should be available. Make sure you get down on some free money there.
Yeah, I like both those spots. I've had a lot of success with the primetime interceptions. For whatever reason, it's become available like last year. The big names always come through in primetime. It's such
Jared
a
Goff
trend.
threw a pick six last night. He was +1. He was plus money something. He was something plus money to throw an interception. I'm like, what? Really? And I'm like, he could throw a pick six. Sure enough, he threw a 75-yard pick six to Marcus Peters. Like, I mean, the interception primetime market is beautiful. Beautiful market.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, it's not even just the little guys. So that was Marcus Peters. You know what I mean? That's not just a Meek Robertson or one of these random guys. Like it's always the big names that step up. And who better to have the first career interception for Levis than Minka Fitzpatrick? I agree.
Oh, yeah.
That would be dope.
Will Levis might try to, get him to sign the ball. Like, hey, can you sign the ball and give it back to me? Can you sign the ball and give it back to me? You got my first pick.
You know what's going to be depressing about this Thursday night football game, though? The real bummer is that once Will Levis does inevitably come back to earth a little bit, the tight ends are going to be down like 14 points in this game, and we're just going to see them run the ball 20 times.
Are they really?
I have the magic ball. Like I see it so clearly.
I don't know, man.
I'm so excited about Levis. Twitter's gonna go crazy. Look at these clips. And then the second half, they're gonna be down 14 points, and Derrick Henry's gonna run the ball 13 times. Like I see it already, and people are gonna be so mad. And I know it's gonna happen. But
let's see. It might be Tajay Spears. I don't know. We still got some time left in the day. It's still some time left in the day. It might be Tajay Spears, but. Oh man, this Steelers offense is just so bad, and
it is.
I watched because I was on Steelers. I had a sizable amount on Steelers this week. It was one of my articles that did not go my way. I watched Mitchell Trubisky play in that game. The interception in the triple coverage was just like the last straw where I was like, this, no matter what happens, this isn't winning. Like, it doesn't matter what happens. I think it was 17-10 at that point, too. Like, I was still kind of hoping on the money line. Yeah, it was so bad. And I watched it real time. Like, it wasn't like I caught it on a replay or like I was watching. I watched it real time. He literally made that decision. Like, oh, man. So I would love to see the Steelers go up 14. I would love to bet Steelers in a fade of Levis, but oh man, I need Pickett to be okay, and I don't know if he's gonna be all right. I gotta look up some Kenny Pickett injury news, and that's really the big question for a lot of these fantasy players with quarterbacks this week. If you are in a deep league and really not even a deep league, because at this point there's a lot of quarterbacks that are going down. When you think of Kenny Pickett went down, Matthew Stafford went down, Kirk Cousins went down. Who else? I mean, earlier in the season, you lost Anthony Richardson, you lost Aaron Rodgers, you lost who's somebody else that was done for? I think it's one more quarterback that's done for the season. I'm not thinking about. But you've lost a lot of quarterbacks over the course of this year, so you very well could be streaming. Hopefully, you're not down bad like Clayton Tune down bad. I really hope you're not that down bad. Yeah. But you could be in a situation like me where I told you I have a league where I have Matthew Stafford and I have Kenny Pickett. And I don't know what I'm doing this week. I have no idea what I'm doing at quarterback this week. So definitely make sure you look at all your options there at quarterback for the week, because it's brutal out here in these streets.
Yeah, I mean, oh boy. I mean, yeah, that's a good point actually too. I mean, who's even like is Stafford back? Is he good? Is Rippin gonna start? Is that who the backup is over there?
Hey Q, can you get some what quarterbacks are most available this week? Can you get that? And we'll end the show with that. What quarterbacks are actually available for pickup this week in a good percentage of leagues? Because I really don't think you have many options. And I think there is a conversation to be had that a lot of people aren't talking about how crappy their quarterback situation might be. Because I know there's people that were starting Kirk Cousins, and you were just happy that Kirk Cousins was not terrible over the course of the year. Now you lose that, and you don't feel good about picking up Jaren Hall and going to get him. So now you're looking, maybe people are forced to start Will Levis this week because it's the only good bright side that you had in backups that haven't been playing well. PJ Walker hasn't been playing well. Deshaun Watson probably gone for the rest of the season. That was the person I was thinking about. Probably gone for the rest of the season. Like it's so many quarterbacks where you're getting subpar quarterback play. And for fantasy, I guess the only thing that you're hanging your hat on is that hopefully the other guy has one of these bad backups or one of these bad quarterbacks too, and he's not getting much. But Zach Wilson, you're up and down, not really seeing it. Again, 3-point loss to the Giants, very, very bad. And maybe this was the year to pay up for quarterback. Maybe this was the year to go draft your quarterback early and just get somebody that you know is going to be here the rest of the season, because all the streamers that I typically do, they're hurt. They're hurt. I'm struggling this year because all my streamers are hurt.
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting. I was trying to even complain about my own team earlier with Dak Prescott, but suddenly it's not even looking so bad.
It looks good. Like it looks good compared to everybody else. Like I can't wait to see the end of the year who the top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy are, because I'm telling you, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 names that you're like, how did they end up there? And it's
Yeah,
just because of availability. Just because of availability.
yeah. Like I'm looking on my waiver wire right now. Derek Carr is around 35% owned in most leagues against a 35th or 30th.
I mean, Derek Carr doesn't sound that bad. I mean, he
right?
looks terrible on screen, but he doesn't sound that bad compared to the options that you have. Like if you were sitting on Kirk Cousins this week, you have to go get Derek Carr. Like that's who you feel like could give you the most production close to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like Sam Howell's going to be out there in a lot of leagues, but I take Carr over Howell against the Patriots defense this week. You mentioned it earlier. Bill Belichick versus these young guys. So it's ugly, but you're right. You got to decide on some of these ugly names right now because it actually does get worse. Like the Clayton Tunes of the world might give you 0 points. Derek Carr will at least give you like an ugly 13, 14 points.
I have to play Browns defense. It's going to be so juice. It's going to be like plus 250. Browns defensive touchdown is going to be like plus 250. But PJ Walker is so bad. The angle, play Cardinals defensive touchdown this week. PJ Walker's pretty bad, guys. Like pretty bad. Play Cardinals defensive touchdown. Get special teams in there just in case. But play Cardinals defensive touchdown this week and just look for the bad quarterbacks that are favored, like Mac Jones. Even as much as I think that they're going to handle business against the Commanders this week, you probably want to play Commanders defensive touchdown. You might want to be, and maybe that's your trade-off for starting a bad quarterback in your fantasy league. Just take defensive touchdown on another team, and you know what? You emotionally hedged your game, and you probably won one. So I think that's just brutal. I think that the injuries to quarterbacks have been way worse this year than in years past. Like it just feels way worse. Like we've lost a lot of quarterbacks for the rest of the season, and the people that we haven't lost the rest of the season, we're getting some pretty bad weeks out there. I mean, not Tyler. I keep saying, why does everybody keep saying Tyler's Tyson? His name is definitely clearly Tyson. Tyson Bagent. The letdown was writing was on the wall. Writing was on the wall for the letdown against the Chargers, and he completely bottomed out. Looking at some of the quarterbacks that are available in fantasy leagues, you have Sam Howell at 30.4%, Baker Mayfield. Not bad. Not bad. Baker's actually pretty tempting. I'm actually doing this for myself. This is not for fantasy advice for everybody else. I just got this information from me so I can figure out what I'm doing this week. Sam Howell at 30.4%. You have Baker at 28%, Derek Carr at 21.3%. Bryce Young at 10%. Okay, good luck with that. Jimmy G at 10%. I think Jimmy G might be worse than Bryce Young at this point. And Minshew at 7.5%. I talked myself into a Minshew earlier in the season. It didn't work out, and the next week he had 2 touchdowns. I'm done with Minshew. And then Daniel Jones is also in 33.9%. Lordy. I guess
whatever Falcons quarterback starts, Heineke, if he gets the start, could be a stream as well. I'm sure he's like 0% right now, but Heineke against the Vikings defense could actually be solid.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that that's the quarterback waiver wire that we're talking about is really indicative of how rough of a season it's been. Like, really, really indicative of how rough of a season it's been. A lot of these guys, like some of these guys, Minshew is a backup. I guess these guys are starters technically, but there's some backups that are playing. I'm telling you, give me 1 week of Jameis and he outscores all of these guys. Give me 1 full week with prep time for Jameis, and you're saying Jameis is the guy. He's starting, not Jameis just coming in and filling in the game. You prepped him. Give me 1 full week of Jameis. He clears everybody up here. Clears them all in fantasy points. And that's why I'm telling people, stop. Unleash free Jameis Winston. Free Tay, free Jameis. Free Jameis. He's going to give us 30 interceptions, but he's going to give us 30 touchdowns too.
I agree. I'm all in. That Jameis Winston would be ideal. That would be like the fantasy gods finally gave us something right there, especially if you've got, I mean, Hawkinson, the guy would get like 14 targets a game. It would be amazing. It would.
I just don't understand how you don't make a trade for him when you just like, what options are there? Because I did see somebody tweet out. It was some beat writer or some reporter. It really might not have been somebody credited, but I did see somebody say that the Vikings are not interested in trading and they're going to probably go to the free agent market. Who? Who is a free agent? Who is a free agent that you're bringing in? Please just give me a name. I just want a name. Give me a name and let me know. I am so curious on what free agent quarterback is out there that you can bring in. Just let me know.
The only one that ever gets brought up, Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. Oh my god! All right, we're ending the show.
You could get Matt Ryan out the booth if you want. You can Colin Kaepernick could write him a letter. We got some options. Okay, those are your three right there.
Producer Keith just threw out Carson Wentz, man.
I'm sure he'd do better than Clayton Tune this week. I'll say that. And before we get out here, Carson Wentz, he's not quite as bad as these guys.
I don't know. If you just drop Carson Wentz on the Cardinals roster, I think they would be. I think PJ Walker would be a 10-point favorite. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm pretty sure. Any other team but the Browns, they're too good. Not fair.
I was just saying. At least Tune's been there, but Carson Wentz. I mean, defensive touchdown galore. All right. Anything else for the people, Stu, before we get up out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say, if you're looking at quarterbacks throughout these lists, I want to give you my top 3 order for this week. I already mentioned Derek Carr, my number 1 streamer for the week. My number 2 is sneaky. We're going Desmond Ridder if he's healthy. Ridder or Heineke, whatever one is healthy. That's obviously. And then finally, I'll throw the sneaky one there. Mac Jones, baby, against my Commanders. We can't stop anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. Ridder had 300. Fields had 300. It's going to be Mac Jones with another 300. I hate it. You see the sign behind me. You know I hate it. But stream Mac Jones if you really have to this week.
Oh, we got to stop. I got to end with that. I mean, that was a great way to end the show. Make sure you tap into Sportstopia HQ, Sportstopia HQ on YouTube, on X, formerly known as Twitter, on Instagram, and sportstopia.io is the website. Get that contrarian optimizer, parlay optimizer. Make sure you get that at the bottom of the screen with that QR code. Other than that, I have nothing else to say, nothing else to do. No other way of ending the podcast. Just going to end it like this. Give me that really cool Game of Thrones music one more time.